This is your executive steering group. And I want to say a couple things about these folks and the rest of the board of directors, if I could. You know, you heard some of the briefings yesterday where they were cracking on me, right? They were saying, oh yeah, General Holt wants to do this conference, and then, you know, we got no guidance. What do you want me to say? Right?
We just love cracking on you.
Yeah, no, I get it. You especially. And so, but I want to make a couple comments on that. That is quite intentional. If you don't think I trust these folks, well, let me ask you this. Do you think that this training event, this summit, do you think that's important to me? You better believe me. I knew that all I had to do was paint the picture of what we're trying to convey, and then just let these folks do their thing. And I want to tell you something. As I sat down yesterday, I was hearing this stuff and seeing it for the first time with you. There was no pre-brief. And as I looked at that for the first time, you know what was going through my head? These are the embodiment of mission-focused business leaders. If you watch their briefing, they started with an absolute command over the missions that they support. They didn't start with FAR 52-222-15. They started with the mission. I didn't tell them to do that. These are folks that you should look up to and to try to emulate. All of these board of directors members. And I'll tell you, I trust them. I trust them. And not just them, but I'll just cheat a little bit, because we'll get to this later. But when I asked for this training summit to be set up, and if you were to ask the people that did this thing, how many times did I come back into their chili to wonder what they were doing? They're going to tell you they were uncomfortable about the few times that I knew what they were doing. And so I'm telling you, we need to trust each other. And when you do that, you get what I call the crack cocaine of leadership.
Do explain.
When you micromanage, and I'm not cracking on micromanagement because sometimes, frankly, it's necessary. But when you micromanage, which I neither have the desire nor the capacity to do, as most of you know, when you do that, you will get what you expect or something less than that. And you will live your life disappointed. But when you trust your people, and you put them out front, and you paint a picture of what the future looks like, and you let them get you there, again and again and again, I have seen it, where what I get back so far blows away what I could have ever imagined was possible, and I can imagine a lot of things. And that is the drug that I will keep coming back for, and I will risk it all to get it. I will risk failure again and again, and I've failed many times seeking that drug. But it is something to behold, and I ask you to think about that as leaders, as you lead your folks as well. So I am so proud of these leaders up here, and they really are the senior contracting officials of the United States Air Force, and they're everything that I would hope that we would all be as mission-focused business leaders. Thank you.
The panel is moderated by the Director of Contracting Award, Robin Assembly J. Ma'am, the stage is yours.
Thank you. And I want to go ahead and introduce our panel members. So we have Brigadier General Alice Trevino, Allie, and she is the commander for FICA. We have, I'm going to go in order just the way y'all sat down, okay? So we have Mr. Anthony Bowman. He is the Director of Contracting at AFSC, actually based out of Tinker. We have the Director of Contracting for AFMC, Ms. Heidi Bullock. We have the Director of Contracting for AFL-CMC, Mr. Tom Robertson. We have Mr. Dave Block, who's the Acting Director of Contracting at SMC in LA. And then we have Ms. Robin Warner, who is the acting deputy director for RCO. And then we have our wonderful chief, Conger, who is actually the chief of policy and the advisor to General Holt for the enlisted. So we're going to have several questions that we're going to ask. We won't have all 7 of them answer every single question because we want to leave time for you to ask your questions because we really want to hear from you. Today is more about implementation. You heard General Holt say that earlier. I kind of call that the eat the carrot stage because we really got to sort out how we're going to do this. I know people have questions about it. But a lot of people call it making sausage, moving your cheese. We're all about food. So today, we're going to solve some of those things here. So please don't be nervous about asking questions. Just stand up and ask them because we want to hear them. So because we're not going to ask them to answer every single one of these, I will ask them to answer one. If you have somebody, though, that you specifically wanted to hear answer a question and they weren't called on, if you want to raise your hand and ask that they answer that, we'll be glad to honor that because you may want to hear a different perspective. However, with that said, looks can sometimes be deceiving and not everybody knows all of our panel members. And so I thought what I would do is just do kind of a little exercise really fast to let you see a little bit of their background. So if you have entered into your contracting career through the military, would you please raise your hand? So we have several that are not in uniform who've raised their hands. I just want to point that out because you're going to get a different perspective from everybody. If you entered the military through an intern program, raise your hand. Okay. If you have worked for the Navy, raise your hand. All right, if you've worked for another agency, such as the FBI, raise your hand. Okay, if you've worked in systems contracting, raise your hand. If you've worked in installation contracting, raise your hand. If you've deployed, raise your hand. So we have a lot of diverse experience up here, guys. So even though you may not have all 7 of them answer the question, I guarantee you're going to get some broad perspectives on these. Okay. So the first question is, with all the focus on speed, does price or quality matter anymore? And so I'm actually going to kick that off with Mr. Robbins.
So thank you, General Hope, for kicking that off on the myths, because I'm very passionate about this particular question, because we have to go fast. There's no doubt about fast. But I will tell you, we're getting some pretty phenomenal awards, good deals, great deals. But what we're not doing is we have a history of this, just churning on the last nickel or dime to save on the contract. And so, just as a way of background, and I'm going to get into whether we love the pricers or not, because I think that's a really important question. But as a way of background, I would tell you 3-4 years ago, that's what we did. I mean, and rightfully so. It was all about saving that dollar. I will tell you, my epiphany came about 3 years ago. We were getting beat up for the top 10 UCAs. When something's called the top 10 UCAs, that's really bad because we got about 400 of them underneath them. But this is top 10 UCAs in time. And so, believe it or not, we actually had one at 3,000 plus days. That's about 10 years. And so, the epiphany is I said, okay, what I want to do is I'm going to bring in all those teams. I'm bring in the top 10. I want them to, they need to brief me. Where they're at, what they're doing, what caused it, et cetera, et cetera. And there was always some great reasons for, well, I wouldn't say great reasons. There were reasons for them being that long. Sometimes it was the contractor's fault, sometimes it was ourselves. But there was one that the light bulb just completely went off, and then LCMC went in a different direction. And it was a $670 million FMS deal. And so I said, okay, well, how close are you in negotiations? Well, we're $1 million apart. I got that. It's a lot of money. $1 million is a lot of money. And I said, well, how long have you been $1 million apart? Oh, 6 months. 6 months. So I looked at the PCO and I said, it's 10 o'clock. At 1400, we will have this negotiated. And that was the start. And the problem is because we didn't unleash them, we didn't let them, because they thought they had to give everything down to the nickel. And so we had to change a few things, and it gets into the pricing. So I had taken so many clearances, and the PCO was just sitting there like whistling, because they'd introduce it. Here's the team, here's this, here's that, and then they'd be done. And then I'd hear from the pricers, and I never heard from the tech people. And we had to change that. So we had to really give it back to the PCO. And I had to tell them, you're responsible for it. So we had to train them. We had to do a lot better job of what we're doing. It gets back to, every PCO is a pricer too. And I will tell you, we have phenomenal prices, and they did such a great job. They briefed all the details and terrific at what they do, but I knew we had to change. If we were going to actually get to the mission, if we were actually going to get faster, we had to get the responsibility of the PCO. We had to give them that authority to run with it. And so they started to do that. Slowly but surely, they started to take over. And so I talked to Chris Kerbavis, who's my chief of pricing. I said, Chris, the pricers are so important to the deal, but not that they have to take a back seat, but if they don't give it off to the PCO, then the PCO is never going to learn to negotiate the deal. And so that's kind of the history, but so it gets back to, we have to have speed. But the PCO, I want them to look not only at price and negotiation, but they can look at other things. Schedule is important. Time is important. What the PM says, that's important. I think that's their, our job is to support them. And so we saw this over a couple of years change, and where the PCO started taking over, and we'll always have the PM there, and always ask them questions, and what's important to them, and what deal could they live with. Now, historically, they used to tell us, and you've all heard this, what about the budget, what's the problem, right? When we got over that, we kind of explained to them that that's not that doesn't work. And so I think once you involve them, and we did, they bought into that too. So really, we started having the IPT, instead of putting the whole burden on the pricer, had the IPT really do start negotiating the deal. So because of that, you really could get to speed, and go faster and faster. So the top 10 is, I think we have one still over 1,000 days. I know that sounds horrific, but we used to have probably 20 to 25 over 1,000 days. So we've drawn that all down. So we have to clean that up, and then because it's time. So that's what I explained to the PCOs. If you're working on something, you may be saving that nickel, but I got 400 programs I can have you working on, and so I need you there, and I need you to work that. And I think that kind of was a light bulb for them. So, are we making some mistakes along the way? Oh, probably. Could we get a better deal if we spend 6 more months on it? Probably, but you know what? We're getting stuff to the warfighter quicker. We're supporting the PM, we're supporting the schedules, and more importantly, we're giving time back to our PCOs and their teams to do other things. Now, let's get to the pricers. I need pricers more than ever, because they are our trainers, they're our teachers. They have more knowledge than all of us in this room combined. It's amazing what they know. It's amazing the ins and outs of the deals. And frankly, I'm tired of going to Navy price fighters, and I'm tired of going to other organizations to do our pricing for us. So we need, if I could do 1,000 more pricers, I would do it, because we really need them. But their game has changed. And so they're partnering with us now. They're teaching us now. So that advanced negotiation workshop I talked about yesterday, the pricers put it all together. That's what I need them to do. I need them to help us train and go in the future. I need them to think about the deal of the future. Like last week, I just challenged them on PVP, so we can beat up on, contractors hate progress payments. They hate it, because it's at 20%. It's cash flow. So performance-based payments, that's what they're all about. It's all about cash flow. If you ever want to incentivize the contractor, it's give them money. That's what they want. They want money, they want it quick, they want it as rapidly as possible. And so we need to figure this out. So that's what I want our pricers to do, to think ahead. And they're so willing to do it. Give them a challenge and they'll figure it out for us, and they support our teams. So I think, no, speed is, I think, taking us in a different direction. I think we're getting great deals. I think we're getting great overall deals. And as Chris, he did remind me, as long as the PCO is documenting the rationale for what they're doing, you can do all sorts of things. And can an auditor come behind and question you? Absolutely. So what? I've got I think we have, I don't know, 15 to 20, 30 open audits right now. And I sleep very well at night.
Mike to the chief, we're going to get his perspective next.
So I don't know if I've just been in 2 meetings with General Holt at FICA and now here at the Pentagon, and I have Stockholm Syndrome. But I truly believe in where we're going with the mission-focused business leadership. And when he talks about speed, he always follows it up with speed with discipline. And that's where we're not sacrificing the quality. A little bit of story, 2014, I was the JITSIC Senior Enlisted Advisor in Afghanistan, and we had a ANNS effort that Red Storm Arsenal was doing for the Afghan government. And I was there 8 months, and every week in the coverage, it was briefed, and nothing changed on that contract for 8 months. In a deployed environment, there was just no sense of urgency to get that effort done from the contracting unit for the Army that was doing this effort. In an active war environment, it's that sense of urgency. We can have the courteous contract files and eye-watering P&Ms, but if the effect of the contract, when it's completed and done, doesn't get to the warfighter on time, it's useless. We've just wasted money if the warfighter doesn't get the result and the capability when they need it. But we have to be, worried about the cost and schedule as well. And those are important. And the quality of our contracts and being able to do everything legally. But as the general said in his brief, it takes real experts to do that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and next.
Mr. Roberts, you have to pass the mic. What was the question again? I think it said, is it important? I guess I can say yes. That's the answer. But as Mr. Robinson said and Chief Conger said, they're giving you some examples of why that's so important. And where is Chris Germain? Stand up.
Man.
How dare you not say hi to me till today? Chris, better hug Stell for me too. He's trained me as well. I was in LCMC right after, what was it, 2012. So he's helped me, and his Chrysler's helped me. So what did General Holt say earlier? He said, I'm taking the training wheels off, and I'm giving you the keys to the, hopefully a Ferrari. Or something that goes, don't give us the keys to anybody drive a Yugo? Anyone stand up if you drove a Yugo in high school? Oh, just me? Okay. Great. Awesome. All of yourself. I'll tell you a funny story about that. My dad grew up, he did all the oil changes and did all the brake pads. And I'm driving this Yugo 3-cylinder going over to my girlfriend's house, and I am like, why are there flames coming out of the wheels? And I'm like, well, I'm just going over to my girlfriend's house. And so I keep going, and the flames keep going too. So I get there, and I'm like, Dad, call, no cell phone, call. He's like, oh yeah, maybe I tightened those brake pads too tight. He's like, why didn't you stop? I'm like, I don't know. So anyway, so you can drive a Yugo with brake pads that are on fire, FYI. But he said, General Holt said, I'm giving you the keys and you have to have responsibility. And what I would say, we talked about the Air Force Posture Review Statement that just came out for fiscal year 20, And my favorite line in there is said, we will never sacrifice quality at the sake of speed, which is exactly what we're talking about right now. It also says right before that line that we are giving responsibilities, as General Holt said, because we're taking those authorities. And so we're doing oversight with our prototypes. We're not making decisions into long-term investment without making sure that there's a business case analysis there. We're making sure that we have the critical analysis first. And we're informing our leadership when we're making these decisions. So Ms. Richardson and I talk about this all the time, and Rob Hicks along. We're like, hey, these authorities are coming down. We're going to have extra time. What are we going to do with that? So we want to make sure that our OLs, they understand the tips and trends across the entire enterprise because they're not operating on an island. We want to make sure that we have that oversight piece in and that we're there to help, not to slow down. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so our next question is, the no process before the process policy has left some policy experts and mid-level branch division chiefs feeling uncertain about their roles. And you did hear General Holt talk about that briefly under the mill. How should they transition their efforts to still leverage their valuable leadership and experience? So we're going to start that one with Ms. Bullock.
So I would just say there's still a role for policy. Okay, there's absolutely a role for reviews. We are not born, with the exception of maybe General Holt of being all-knowing. Okay, the rest of us mere mortals have to work at it. So I would say there's absolutely a role for the reviewers and the branch chiefs. And if you're not part of the process per se formally, be approachable. All right, be that branch chief, be that individual that folks want to ask the questions of because you are knowledgeable, because you are smart, because you've seen it before. And I tell you, if you're approachable, folks will come up and they will ask you questions, and that's where you can coach and you can train. And you can take off the training wheels because they're not going to crash and burn 2 feet down the road. So there's a different role for you. There's also a role though with reviewing. You can say, you know, I've done that and it doesn't really work well. The speed with discipline is very important as well. Now on the flip side, I would say to the perhaps junior workforce and the folks that are striving to get that unlimited more and learn more, don't be lazy, all right? Don't just go up to that branch chief or that reviewer and say, well, you're a reviewer, I know you know the answer to this, so what's the TINA threshold? Have you done any research? Because that's what is frustrating, I would say, to perhaps the mid-level is, you answer these questions and you say, have you done any research? And they look at you and they say, well, no, why should I? I know you know the answer. Well, yeah, I know the answer because I've done the legwork. I need you to also have your commitment and be invested in your being a contracted ninja. You have equal parts responsibility. Branch chiefs, all the folks sitting up here, all the folks sitting out there have a responsibility to make sure that you are the best trained and the best equipped. But that's a two-way street. That is not just one way. That is both ways, folks. But back to the policy, folks, imagine other things that you can do. Look across, step back. I think Mr. Baumann had it in his charts about not being able to see the trees in the forest. Step back and be creative, see where else there are needs, look at trend analysis, see where there are mistakes, have that open line of communication with your office and with your organization so that folks say, who's the best at X? Oh, that would be John over at this division. And then John, be approachable so that somebody can call you up, somebody can shoot you an email and you say, sure, I'm glad to talk to you. This is what I've done. So it's a two-way street. But policy guys, there's absolutely a place for it. And by the way, everybody out there that thinks that Jerry can attest to this, by the way, I'm pretty sure. You know, you look at those policy memorandums and you say, who the heck wrote that? Those people are idiots. And I say, maybe. But I would challenge you to come up and go on staff and feel free to write your first policy memo and see how well that goes. So it's a lot, you know, it depends on where you sit and what your experience is, but, you know, if you think it's really, oh, that's so easy, come on down. Come on down. I'll be glad to have you work a little bit of policy and see how easy it is.
Mr. Bowden's next.
I want this. What an opportunity. Review is a tactical activity, right? And we're very good at tactical activities. We do them extremely well. We execute. We don't do strategic very well, right? But let me tell you why. It's not necessarily capability, right? I learned something. Everybody walked away with something from this, right? Today, this conference. I learned this thing called Bloom's taxonomy. And I'm going to use that over and over and over. And all of us get to that level where we've learned it, we've applied it, we're really good. Reviewers, contracting SMEs, you've been up at the analyze, the evaluate, and the create. The strategic is that create a lot of times, right? That's what you do there. We are so good at tactical, we don't have the time. We have the ability, but we don't have the time to create. Oh my God. You cut out those reviews, and I just created the opportunity to be strategic. If you're going to make change, you need to think strategically. You need to think the why. You need to think the where. And we're just giving you time to be creative, time to be strategic, time to make change. And that's change to figure out where do we need to go, what are the ways to get it, time to put our heads together and think what's the great thing and the best thing to do. You need to be excited about having that time to navigate in strategic land. I had a branch chief, because I look at Tinker, and I always think about those section chiefs are highly tactical with a little bit of operational and strategic. The branch chiefs are operational with a good section of tactical and trying to find time to do strategic and contribute up. The division chiefs should be significantly strategic and a lot of operational, and they got to do that tactical help when they do. But what I find out is we all find ourselves, A, because of comfort, and B, just because of the demands, because we will deliver the warfighter, getting into that tactical level, and we don't have time for strategic. One of my branch chiefs got it, and he said, and there's actually two of them. It's one of them at Tinker that I talked to, and it's one of them at Robbins that I talked to. And they said, I'm really enjoying getting into that branch chief role because I have to train myself to leave more of that tactical behind and get into that operational and get into that strategic. And navigating those realms and making impact. If we take the clearances and some of those responsibilities out of you, it doesn't make them, by the way, all you folks are down and really executing tactical missions, it doesn't take them away from being available to guide you and assist you and do it and transfer that institutional knowledge. But it gives them the time to make things better for you in the end in terms of being able to bring strategic change. What a blessing.
Mr. Vaughn.
So I think that what we're doing here is we're asking ourselves to be operated at a different level than we had before. We're all contracting people. We're all rule followers. That's what we do, right? That's why they wrote everything down, but it's wrong. What we need to do is think about what we're trying to accomplish. So we had a clearance since with General Holt, and since he said he only had one, now you know. So on the purpose slide, it said, you know, the gobbledygook, we're coming up to get clearance, make sure we're good with all policy and everything that's in the template, right? Frankly, I hadn't read the purpose slide. I know my contracting officer hadn't read the purpose slide. We skipped that and go to where the meat of the briefing is. But he said, at the end of the briefing, he said, well, your purpose slide says this gobbledygook, right? And we were like, yeah. He goes, what are you trying to do? And so we're trying to provide lift for the Department of Defense. And we're like, yeah, that's what we're trying to do. So when it comes to policy now, it's not that we're asking you not to do, there's always going to be rules. We want you to do that. There's always going to be reviews. We want you to do that. But I've had people do reviews where they come to me in clearance and I said, at the end, so we don't know what we're buying, we don't know when it's going to get delivered, and we don't know how much we're going to pay for it. But it follows all the rules. Okay? That's what we want you to get after. So when you do a review and you figure out it doesn't do all those three things, which are the only things that matter, that's what you should be focusing on. I've also told all of my contracting officers and all my chiefs of contracts that I want you to be innovative. I want you to come to me with cockamamie ideas, and we'll see if we can do it or not, if it makes sense. That's the role of our policy now, is like, okay, if you're gonna do that, you have to ask for these 3 waivers, and we'll do that. And oh, by the way, every waiver that I've processed since I've been in this seat has been approved. Every delegation that I've asked for has been approved, including DPC peer reviews. So I said, if we ask, they're probably going to say yes. Does it make sense if we ask? That's what I need help with my policy people. I need that outside vision from our contracting officers and our chief of contracts to say, yeah, it's different. Yeah, we have to ask for waivers, but it makes sense. That's what I want my policy people to do.
So, you know when you're reviewing a proposal and you start at the top of that spreadsheet and you start with your direct labor, you look at the hours and you look at the rates, you say, that seems fair. I'm willing to pay $200,000 for that direct labor. Then you move down to the next line in the spreadsheet and you apply the overhead rate, and now it's $1 million. You say, I don't want that overhead. I want those direct laborers. I want that engineer who's working on that project. Those companies with the high overhead rates blow our minds in a sole source environment, and they're not competitive in the source selection. Our policy reviewers and our division chiefs, while necessary, are part of that overhead, right? They aren't charging one program in particular. They are our overhead. So if you find yourself as a div chief or a policy reviewer with extra time on your hands as a result of this paradigm shift, that means it's working. And I have 2 pointed suggestions on how you can spend that extra time. First, get to know your industry partners. Do you know who they are? Or do you only call them when there's an issue in your portfolio? Do you only call your counterparts at Boeing and Lockheed when your negotiations reach an impasse and you're trying to help your PCO? Or if there's continuous poor performance and you're calling them with an issue? Call them now and start building that relationship with them. I will tell you, since I have stepped in this acting seat and I have built relationships with my industry partners, I have learned more from them, nuggets in how they operate, and I've learned more from them on how OSD and the Hill is operating, just by talking to them. And then I can pass those nuggets down to the PCOs who are negotiating the deals. I can help them find where things are getting hung up that aren't based on dollars, but are based on issues. So I encourage you to use that newfound time and that bandwidth to talk to your industry partners. My second suggestion, I'm going to tell you by way of a story. So if you're not familiar with the RCO, we're minimally manned on purpose. We run large ACAT 1 type programs, and oftentimes with maybe 3 or 4 PCOs. There was a time at the RCO when I was a PCO on a program, and it went down to just 1 PCO, just me. I had 15 counterparts at the company. My company was running circles around me. They were throwing letters at me left and right. They knew that I could not keep up. I couldn't read the letters fast enough, let alone how to respond to them. And I was waving the white flag to my leadership. I went to my chief of contracts, and I went to my director of contracts, and said, I need help. I can't keep up. And the most amazing thing happened. Our director of contracts at the time, Ms. Culpepper, Cindy Culpepper, for any that know her, she came to my desk. She pushed up her sleeves, and she said to me, I'm a contracting officer, how can I help you? So my suggestion, if you find you have new bandwidth as a policy reviewer or a division chief, go out and help your PCOs.
I promise to be quick, because everything said is absolutely true. To me, policy is more important than they ever were, because yesterday you heard me talk about the 7 layers. Well, they're my layer of defense. So, but they have to change how they're actually reviewing files. It isn't review the file, go back and forth to the PCO 400 times. It's review the file, tell the clearance official what issues you see, and then make the sausage in clearance. So it's a different role, a more critical role, So policy, I'd see even more critical, and I don't know where they're going to get the time, because they are doing new projects and going on training, so that's goodness. As far as cutting off the layers and along the way of review, there is a purpose for everything. I mean, I did it personally because I wanted them to do more training, workforce development. I wanted them to take care of the PCOs, not one PCO, but 3 PCOs. That's their job, but it's hard. I'll tell you, it's hard. It's going to be hard for them, so we have to continually talk to them, because they may have a feeling that they're not important anymore. You know, I achieved section chief, I achieved division chief, and they're bypassing me, going straight to the boss. So we have to talk through that and work through that, but it gives them the time to do the stuff they're supposed to do as the supervisor and the leader.
Okay, so our next question deals with mission-focused business leadership. I think people are concerned, they're hearing a little bit of the excitement from us, and yet in their workplace they may still be hearing some of that, well, that's not the way we do business here. So these are kind of cool messages that they're getting, and we want to know what kind of strategies we've got for that. And so we're going to ask, starting with General Trevino, what advice would you give to both groups on how to manage this transition in a way that values the inputs of everyone?
So both groups being one that says I'm all in and one that says I still need a little bit more time to be all in? Okay, so I have a story for that. And this came from, so about 3 weeks ago, we were in, Ms. Heidi Bullock and I were in the AFMC Senior Leader Conference, Leadership Summit. And they had a panel of speakers that were authorities on Russia, Ireland, and Australia, and national security at large. At the end of that panel, the moderator said, have you ever heard of Dr. Edward Teller? So does everybody know who Dr. Edward Teller is? All right, he's a Hungarian scientist. He's the father of the Oppenheimer Project. He is the initiator for Strategic Defense Initiative. He passed away about a decade ago, and maybe 20 years now. He had, there's a famous, I can't find the podcast, but he told us about the podcast, and I'm searching for it, about the difference between an optimist and a pessimist. Anybody heard this? Oh, good. Okay, a pessimist is someone who knows they're right, always tells they're right, tells you they're right, and gets no enjoyment about being right. An optimist is someone who knows there are things that are out there that are going wrong, can see where we're vulnerable, and wants to do something about it. And that's how I see mission-focused business leadership. I am an incurable optimist. I went to the Air Force Academy. They tried to cure me of that. They failed miserably. But I'm very realistic on what we can do. And that's why I say we have to have speed, but we have to have quality, we have to have critical thinking, and we need your analysis and we need your feedback. That's why Ms. Bullock says, if you want to write a letter and be the chief of policy, help us write it better. That's why when we spoke on readiness, we stood up, all 17 team members, and we said, if you have ideas and you want to help, volunteer. That is why we're 8,000 people strong. And you saw the numbers, it's like really, what was it, 7,890. But I don't think we included the lawyers. So can the lawyers stand up, please, that are here today? You don't think that they don't think that they're part of the contracting community? First of all, they wouldn't be here, but we know that they are. You don't go anywhere without your lawyer. They may tell you that you want them to tell you that you're legally sufficient. You don't want them to tell you no. The best lawyers on this world, in this world, tell you how to get to us, and you use them. Now, who here is from the small business community? Please stand up. Please stand up. All right, so Mary Uri talked to me on Monday, and she said, someone said small business. If we're not saying small business and they're not part of the team, our acquisition strategy is going to be like poorly defined from the get-go. We talk about Roger Westmeyer, Steve Brady, enterprise sourcing. When I first got there, they gave me this grid that had, here's all the small business successes. General Holt, before he went up to be SAF AQC, he had to go testify on the Hill because they awarded a very large dollar contract, and it changed from a large business to a small business, and for once, the large business community was saying, that's not fair. And they told them, here's all the savings that we have, and here's what the projected savings are, and oh, by the way, here's how many more small businesses now are getting awards because we partnered with our small business community. So if you're not partnering with your lawyers, with your small business personnel, with your policy folks, with your pricers, you are leaving money on the table. And your acquisition strategy will not be as strong as you need it to be. And when you get to, say, a potential review or a potential briefing, now you have to do rework that if you had just talked, you would never be where you're at today. That is why I'm such an advocate of relationship building. That's why I'm such an advocate of networking. That is why I'm such an advocate of saying when you leave here, you need to share what you learned. So please tell me who in this room has met more than 5 new people. Stand up. Stand up. Now, this is going to be hard for the introverts. Sit down if you've met less than 10 people. That's okay. Sit down if you've met less than 15 people. I am mortified by your behavior. But everybody else, that's okay. Oh, I like that. Sorry, Walker. Okay, who's met more than 25 people? General Holt, sit down, General Holt. You're not playing. You're not playing. Oh, Ron, my favorite people over here. Okay, I'm just going to, just really quickly, talk about mission-focused business leaders. This table right here, I had the pleasure of meeting them. The airman right here, just, what was it? Recently promoted, below the zone. Woo. Yep, so you guys stand up too. This team is fabulous. Mission-focused business leaders, living it, showing it. Ryan, I asked him, can it tell me why they're here? And he couldn't stop talking about them. How they're leaders, how they're innovative, giving me examples, what they're doing, and then I just challenged them to do more of it. So awesome. Woo! Thank you.
So, we'll go ahead and let Mr. Bauman answer the next, and then we're going to go to the chief.
Well, this has been fun. Okay, so adopters and non-adopters, right, or people who are in and resistors. Reality is you are going to see that. And so let's go back in history. A lot of times we've all experienced this. It's been a voice that's been saying something, right? And that voice is dwarfed by years of experience and seeing that and it not happening, right? General Holt made a comment. He said he didn't approve our briefings, right? You heard a bunch of briefings up here. I want to tell you something else that didn't happen. We didn't see each other's briefings and coordinate. But what did you see in those briefings? Same themes, right? Same things. There's not one voice on this. Every briefer that came up here was running a theme and there was no collaboration on putting that together. That's different. Now, I'll give you an example. When I was at the FBI, we worked with Kellogg School of Business at Northwestern and brought them in to do training on change management. And they had a simulation, and you looked at it, and you had to spend your time and send your messages and do it, and you were trying to penetrate the whole organization. And you had your change agents, you had your early adopters, you had your senior message. And that's what we have right now, is because this message, and I think that's what's different about today, it's coming from the very top. But I'm a movie buff, and everybody's seen Major League, right? And remember when he wanted in Major League One to face the guy that was the Indian killer, right? Right? And he struck him out, right? Wild Thing struck him out. But what Tom Berenger told him was, this is the out you've been waiting your whole life for. You know, other than this man right here, Darrell Scott, I was one of the last guys to sit down. I've got 30 years. I'm telling you, I've been waiting my whole life for this. When I was 2 years into contracting, I saw stupid stuff. And I said, okay, I got to go all the way up to OPP, and then finally I can make some change. Well, I was at OPP, and there's still limits on what you can do because you still have to get the buy-in, the advocacy. You have to get that optimism. You have that right now, okay? Now, what I will say is challenge that, expand that, and get that thinking to penetrate the organization. Find those change agents, find those things, build those communities. And I'm going to give you a reality check. Again, another movie. Favorite one on many levels. Remember the Titans. Gary Bertier walked up to Coach Boone, and he said, I want Ray cut. And he says, you know my policy. And he says, yeah, but I know he missed that play on purpose. The thing we have to be careful from, and this is going to be a leadership challenge, if there are people undermining what needs to happen where the Air Force is going, and I swear I hope that does not happen, but he needs to walk out, and we may have to take somebody out for the betterment of the Air Force mission. We cannot fail to fly, fight, and win. And if that's what it takes, and Gary Bertier took his best friend Ray, right? And he said, you're out. I don't think we have to do that. Why? We're professionals. Why? I think we like serving, or we wouldn't be here in the first place. If we hated it, we wouldn't be in this field. I think we're all going to embrace it. I think some will take time, right? Because change is hard. Don't kid yourself. But make it infectious, because this isn't about one. This is about many. And when I hear the applause on stuff, what I'm hearing is a lot of people are like me. I've been waiting my whole life for this.
So I see it in very much the same way. When you talk about that, well, we've always done it that way. And I can't tell you how many bases I've been to. Well, this base is different. We just do things. This is just the way we've always done it. And there's a simple answer to that is ask the question why. If there's no logical, reasonable reason for it, then you challenge it. There may be reasons why things are different, or there may be good business case analysis. This is why we've always done it that way. So when the generals talk about not liking frozen metal, and I don't either, we have history of why certain processes work, but we can't get to fly, fight, and win, and especially in the future, by always doing things the way we've always done it. It's just not going to work in the future. So they're in what we call, in the dorms, we have a bunch of dorm lawyers out there, or what we affectionately refer to as the ARM, the Airmen's Resistance Council. That are going to challenge things, but you got to get those people and those fresh new ideas on your side and supporting the changes that need to be happening. Because if they're not, it just becomes gripes, bitches, and complaints, and they have no plan to solve problems. And you got to have a plan, and you can't just complain about things. You got to be part of the solution. And I think that's important too.
Okay, so we do have one more question, but we're going to hold for a little bit and just see if we've got some questions from the audience, because we want to make sure that we get your questions. So do we have any questions out there? If so, would you raise your hand? We'll make sure we get a mic to you. Right here in front.
Mike.
Mike.
Mike. Mike. Mike.
Mike.
Hello, Mike. Hello, Mike.
Good morning, Colonel French, DCMA. My question is for General Camino. First, I have to apologize. I was a Yugo driver, but I didn't want to stand up. I didn't want to admit it.
She is standing up.
My wheels never caught on fire, but I had to use a screwdriver and hammer to get the gas cap off because it was for a long period of time. But my question is, how best can DCMA airmen fit into mission-focused business leaders?
Great question, Lance. So, DCMA, I had the pleasure of working with DCMA for 4 years, and they were also on this journey as well. They didn't call it mission-focused business leadership directly, but they had all the tenets there. And one of the most important things, well, a lot of important things, but one of the most was proactive engagement on how you see that. And not just the RFP involvement, but, I have a story. When I was in DCMA in LA, one of our contracts was SpaceX, and we were working with launch vehicles. And this was 2017, 2016, and we're talking about other transactions, another transaction authority, brand new, contract vehicles without having FAR-based contract. How do you get your foot in the plant? How do you get your foot in the door? How do you get your foot in the plant? How do you help them? How do they get over this not understanding how, how we do quality at SpaceX when no other industry that have our foot in the door, we're in that plant, that we can equivalent, that it was equivalent. And we're having some issues going back with the MOA, Memorandum of Agreement. And the CMO director at the time, he came to me and he said, hey, we're having this problem. And I said, so, have the PCO and the ACO talked about this? Now, does everybody know where SpaceX is? LA? Anybody guess where the PCO was? LA Air Force Base. Anyone think they'd ever met? Anyone, stand up if you think they'd ever talked on the phone. Now you can sense my irritation as I made a recommendation. Actually, it wasn't a recommendation, I already told you, Lance. I made them go have lunch together. And I said, hey, go have lunch together and tell me how it goes after you meet. And they had a great lunch, and they went to, and I said, oh, by the way, drive to LA Air Force Base, don't make them come up to where you're at, go visit them. And it has to do with the relationship building, it has to do with what we talked about here today, it has to do with asking for help before you need it, and talking to industry before you have a problem. And they didn't have a relationship. So it was okay that they didn't have a relationship. I was just happy that they have one now. I'm very hopeful that that relationship continues. So that's how I think that we can change that paradigm if our ACOs and PCOs aren't talking. And take it a step further, it should be the contracts specialists and the buyers and under the ACOs that are talking, and it should be the entire team. And I know that even at Wright-Patterson, every time a CGO or a major comes in to talk to me, I ask them, hey, have you talked to Tom Hoskins? He's the DCMA Dayton commander, and I bet you he has a DCMA 101 briefing, and I bet you have some information that you can share with him. And he may not even be here supporting CMO. It's about relationships, and it's about being aware of where DCMA is located and picking up the phone and asking them. And we don't do a very good job at that, but I am an eternal optimist, and I know we can do better. So thanks, Lance.
Okay, next question. Let's see one back here.
I've got one, Mr. Major Area from Ruby. So this question is for Robin Warner. Can you give an example of maybe a time that you took a risk in an acquisition there and where you failed and maybe you weren't punished for it?
Thank you, that's a good question.
So I guess when we start with the organization that I work with encourages taking risks, right? I work with the RCO. We live and die by our charter that encourages creativity, encourages rapidness, and creates taking calculated risks. I can certainly give you an example of a time that I took what I thought was a really great creative idea that turned out to be an utter failure. And I wasn't punished, I was rewarded for taking that risk. I guess about 7 years ago when I joined the RCO, I was doing an annual production buy, and I apologize, it's classified, so I can't get into a lot of the specific details of what I was doing, but it was an annual production buy, and wrapped things up in about January time frame, and it was time to go on to the next annual buy, right? These take a long time, so you're always in one part or overlapping multiple annual buys. And I thought I had a great idea. Man, me and the contractor just fought tooth and nail and decided that this was a fair and reasonable price that I just put on contract yesterday. Why can't I leverage that? Why do we have to start all over again just because I'm buying a different quantity this year? Why do they have to go back out to all of their suppliers and we have to go through this entire very lengthy, very expensive process? And I thought, I can give time back to the warfighter. Why can't we just do a Delta proposal? It sounded so great at the time. Why don't we start with what we just put on contract? Send me a white paper on your methodology to just reduce the quantity from what I bought this past year to what I'm buying this year, and just certify to that Delta. It's gonna be so much faster. My leadership was in, because that's our culture. Our culture is to find ways to go faster and be creative. It was a mess. If you look at that contract file, it is a nightmare. It took us longer to do what I thought was a brilliant idea than if we had actually just gone the old way. But there were significant lessons learned from that. For instance, we should have been a little more clear in our ground rules and assumptions on what was our baseline. We should have defined some key concepts and criteria, and we should have discussed how those negotiations were actually going to operate. I didn't do any of that because I didn't think through that. I didn't realize we needed to do that. And it was a failure. It took so long. I was working on the next buy while I was still closing up what I thought was supposed to be the quick buy. I hope that file never gets audited.
We have a question in the back.
Hi, I'm Jeff Sorensen from Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center. And I promised I have a question, but first I want to just set it up with a little bit of a story. Imagine you're at Vandenberg Air Force Base and the Elbonians are attacking. Who knows who Elbonians are? Dilbert, you know what I'm saying? So, well, they're Chinese or they're Russians. And so you call back to headquarters, Pentagon, and you say, we need some help. And they say, no problem, we're going to get you some people, fill out this palm spreadsheet. And then you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And then a year or two later, when the palm, okay, we agree that you need these people, but we can't give them to you. So then you wait some more, and you find some little tricks here and there. Sometimes you can steal a person here or there, but basically what I'm describing is a situation where there is no strategic, we talked about strategic up there, planning for how we allocate our resources. Last year, I was able to corner General Blake and say, hey, we need to do a rebaselining of the workforce, the contracting workforce, aligned to what the priorities are. And I admit that was selfish because at the Weapons Center, we're a tiny little center with less than 100 people, with probably 3 of the top 10 priorities that are on that list. And he said, well, that's a new Weapons Center problem. So we fight with people that are also on that list of top programs. So I guess my question is, I assume that meetings would happen at a strategic level, and that the priorities came out, that the people on the stage would get together and go, okay, how are we going to resource those priorities? But that didn't happen, and so at this point, with my director retiring, I'm kind of sitting in the seat right now. If someone were to ask me, GBSD, Dr. Roper mentioned GBSD, is that going to be able to execute? I'd have to be honest and say, I don't know. If nothing happens to our CO, we can probably squeak by. But that's not really a good answer when there's, literally thousands of people in Air Force contracting that we could be drawing from. I don't have a pricing team for that. We're trying to patch one together. But so my question is, why haven't we, or when are we going to take a strategic approach about resourcing programs and priorities for the warfighter?
Well, I mean, no. So I think your overall assumption is correct. There's many factors that go into it, because sometimes, obviously, there's different organizations that people belong to, and we can never get together to completely resource that. And I would tell you, up until about 4 years ago, frankly, we had no idea, and I'm just giving you my example in LCMC, we had no idea how many people, how many programs, and same thing, what were the priorities. It took us about 2 years to build this SRM model that basically did that. They went out to each PEO, had them tier every one of their programs. You know, the funny thing about that, as we went through that drill, we found out in 4 years we'd accepted 400 programs that never were resourced. But we always say yes, bring it on, and people don't understand. They just think what we do, we sprinkle fairy dust and magically a plane appears, or magically a system comes on board. But we didn't have the facts, so we finally got down to the facts. We built this system, and then it was, it's like anything. It was probably a year or two of denial, because everybody looked at it and said, yeah, we can move resources, but not in my portfolio. But I'll tell you what it took for us. It's really about being dogged, and we kept pushing it, and finally it was General Polakowski from AFCWWTS that honestly took it on. And she actually went to the 4-stars at Corona, and she told us this story. She initially got laughed at by the warfighters, because the warfighters thought we sat in our cubicles and just did nothing. 8 bonbons. Okay, we ate bonbons. And she carried that story, and if you know General Polakowski, she's not going to stop. So she was a pit bull, and she kept telling the story and kept telling the story. So the reason I tell you that is there is light at the end of the tunnel if you can't organize it, because I think I mentioned yesterday, we finally got the COCOMs. Because we'd sit back and let the COCOMs have their chats. Now we sit at the table and we talk to them about their programs and what effect it has on them. And so Global Strike just came up with 762 positions for us, and ACC's next. Is it enough? No, but it's finally, we have the data. It's all about the data and the analysis of the data. And once you prioritize things and programs, we're actually getting the PEOs to go, you know what, I'm not doing that program. I can't do it. There is no resources, because I got these 6 or 7 up here that I've got to totally pay attention to. And so that's about taking risk. But with the Nuclear Weapons Center, you're kind of new in that ball game, and there's a lot that came at you at once. And as far as resources, I think it's gonna take time and maturity and bulldoggedness. Frankly, bulldoggedness to keep working that particular issue. That's what the PEO is about. And I know, because of the importance of what you guys are doing, you've got an ear. You got an ear everywhere in the Pentagon. So I think it's just something that we keep working.
So Jeff, I'd say, again, along the lines of what General Polakowski is doing, the other thing that she's been trying to do is move the civilian pay from O&M to program money. And you need, again, that's got to be in the palm. A lot of the things that we're trying to do aren't quick, all right? And they recognize it. But one thing I would say to you, when I got to AFMC headquarters in PK, I asked my staff, I said, I have a lot of ideas of what I think we can do to be value added to the field. And we're not going to have enough hours in the day to do what you're currently doing and do all the things that I think we should be doing. So every single time I took a briefing when I first got there, I said, why do we do this? Why do we collect this information? Because AQC wants it. Okay, that's cool. What is AQC doing with it? We don't know. Well, let's ask AQC. Okay, what does AQC do it? They just collect it. Well, let's just stop reporting this. Let's use that time for other purposes to be value added to the AFMC enterprise. So Jeff, for Newton Weapons Center, I don't know all the things that you guys are doing, but I would make the argument that a lot of times we continue to do things that we don't need to continue to do. And I would say, and even in DCMA, to Colonel French, you know, I give this report, I was a DCMA commander, I give this report to the Recce Wing. Have they ever commented on it? No. Have you ever asked them what they want to see? No. Then how do you know you're being value added? So Jeff, back to you. Are you doing some things that perhaps you don't need to do? I don't know. But look at those from that lens and say, what can we shed off that's not, you know, the priority? Go to your customer, what is a priority? And say, I only have the bandwidth to do these top 3 things, sir. I'm going to drop off number 4, 5, and 6 and get that top cover as well. But I firmly believe that we, as an organization and as an enterprise, are doing a lot of things that are not value added. And they can absolutely positively be stopped, so we have the bandwidth to think and do things that are mission-focused business leaders that get us after our leader peers.
I just want to add one thing to this, and that's, I think what we need to understand is it's one Air Force and it's one mission, okay? So a lot of success or failure, because all these are valid points that have been made. But never forget understanding capacity, being honest about where you have capacity, okay? And then the importance of alliances and partnerships, okay? Okay? I've done that internally where it's easy, where I take my trainees and move them from one section to another to help them with the end of the year. In Europe, I redirected work among my offices when I had one that had double the workload of the other. We get complicated when we have monies that are involved, and I can use FMS assets for FMS assets and working capital for working capital, but I can also chalk a couple one-offs up to training and be creative about that, okay? And some of these one-offs in Europe, I found myself, I was a deputy of an army in a contracting brigade in Europe. And when Transcom couldn't provide airlift support and medevac on Africa, guess who did it? And when DIA said, we're writing our contract over here, but frankly, the Air Force is walking away from supporting us at Molesworth, but I need help, can you help me? Yeah, not my mission, but yeah, because I'm the biggest contracting entity in Europe when I was there, okay? We're one government, we're one Department of Defense, we're one Air Force, it's one mission, that's to protect this nation and secure its interests, right? I can't take on lifelong missions without resources that are out of my lane, but alliances are so important.
Okay. The next question is actually an online question. So we're going to go ahead and give this to General Trevino. They're really asking, we have 2 different people ask about what's going to happen with our contracting officers and their 64 Ps. And so what's the future development for them? And how will this be done? Will this be done through a call?
Will be done through what? Call. Okay. So first of all, the CFETP, we have a CFETP for the enlisted and we have a CFETP for the officers. So who didn't know that? Can you stand up? Yeah, one person learned. Are you a supervisor? May need to know that. You can sit down. So the reason I asked that question is we want to make sure that the supervisors know. One of the questions that was is asking, like, well, how do you have oversight of that? Chief Ting has helped me understand how the enlisted CFETP is changing, and actually, can all our chiefs and our senior master sergeants in the audience please stand up? You guys are awesome, and this audience, and with the help of Chief Conger, they enlisted CFETP. They said, wow, we need to rewrite this and we need to make it better, and so they launched out, as General Holt said, they don't wait, they're just doing it. And with our officer CFETP, which is not owned by SAFA-QC, it's owned by SAFA-QH, I think, right? And they brought that out to us. I remember when John Masiello shared it with us, this is 2015, we had a group of ACOs that were in DCMA take that 6-4P officer CFETP, add a tab for DCMA so that they had DCMA specifics, and that has not been updated since 2015 because it is still accurate. And the oversight piece comes in with the supervisors. So that's why I wanted to make sure that all the supervisors understand that. So it has to go with that oversight and accountability piece, but we're making sure that with workforce development, as we've talked all week long, how important that is with growth and development. You cannot have a piece of paper and it just sits there. It can't be stagnant. It's a living document. You have to self-identify what you need. You have to work with your team. If you're in a small unit, you have to say, who here can help me understand this piece of the CFETP so I can have this core training? If there's nobody at my office that can help me, how can I find somebody up the chain? We're pretty good virtually connected challenge. You've met all the people, now you need to stay in contact. I talked to a second lieutenant on the way back last night from Kirtland, I think, and we were talking about how is he staying connected with the people that he met in Merco 6 months ago. And he was already asking, hey, I've already lost touch with them, how am I going to reconnect? So start thinking about that now, because after meeting Brian, you're going to have a tough time if you've met 25 people. But hey, keep doing it and make sure that you're staying connected with us, because that's how we hold ourselves accountable. As Heidi Bullock said, it's shared ownership. I'm not holding you accountable if you're not holding yourself accountable. That's how we grow. I'm a lifelong learner. I learn something new every day. You should all really feel sorry for my husband. Poor Ray. You have to have an insatiable appetite to learn and share. And I heard this saying a couple of years ago, probably when I was, I don't know, maybe 8 years old, watching the Conjunction Junction, What's Your Function network, and it was, knowledge is power, but only when shared. And that's what our CFETP helps us with. It gives you something tangible that you can see on how you have to grow. That, in line with our contracting pyramid, even though it hasn't been updated in a while, it is still alive today. It's a living document, and it doesn't say you have to do this to go to the next spot. These are the things that you can do, and that's what you want to do, because you're involved in that process too, on how you encourage your own development. Great question.
I think that is our time for right now. So I would like to thank our panelists for all their answers they gave us. A lot of good discussion.
We're going to break for lunch now. Please grab your food, take your seats, and please be back in the room by 11:10. Thank you.
I need pictures.
You guys are quick. We're out in the car. He's on off the stage. Just like that.
Yep. That's where Ellie is.
Smile.
All right, slide this way.
Thank you so much.